come World Cup next year, that has to stop.
It is questionable. You picture some Frenchman smoking a fag out in the outside the stadium.
And he's just there.
The plug, like.
Yeah, that's what everyone's thinking. Now. And he's just plugging it out.
I don't know. There's something a bit fishy there, right? And Rassie might have a little bit of a point, but there's ways of going about this.
Of course.
Joe presents House of Rugby, United Rugby Championship, together with Bank of Ireland, proud supporter of the 4 Irish provinces.
Hello and welcome back to House of Rugby together with Bank of Ireland. I'm Greg O'Shea and I'm joined by my 2 old buddies this week. Of course, the lovely Lindsay Pete's here. How are you, Lindsay?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very good. And Jason Hennessy is rolled up. How are you, sir? Good to have you back.
Good. Just off the train, absolutely wired to the moon with coffee and ready to talk about rugby.
I'd say your eyes are square from looking at rugby over the weekend today.
Yeah, but sure, look, it's my job. It's got to be done. There's worse jobs out there.
There's definitely worse jobs out there, yeah. So elephant in the room, obviously my nose isn't looking the greatest right now. I got a third surgery on an old rugby broken nose, but sure, I'd say every second person has a broken nose that plays rugby nowadays. You have one, Lindsay, don't you?
I do, yeah. I had just the one surgery, thank God.
Just the one, thank
just
God.
the one, yeah. You sure now?
Up.
It's definitely from a break. It's not any cosmetic surgery.
Not just aesthetic.
Are you sure now that you've taken over this 6 o'clock show? Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you positive?
No, look, get to work.
Because you're gorgeous anyway. Now you know we love you.
Oh, stop flirting with me of a Monday morning, will you?
Too early.
Were you playing on the weekend, Lindsay? You were?
Okay, you brought up your payback, is it? Yeah, we lost our first match this season. Thanks very much. Yeah. 17-19.
Oh, no way. It was a close one.
Yeah.
Who was it against?
I'm going to have a Rassie moment here, right? I'm going to give out about the referee. I know. It was battle with Blackrock, but I think we should be okay for a home semi-final still. But a tougher route we decided to take. But look, it was top of the table. It was always going to be tough. We probably didn't play our best rugby, but look. Okay. It is what it is, and just a nice reminder to reset the button and get working a little bit harder for the business end of the season.
It keeps you tuned in, yeah. And Jason, have you been playing any rugby recently?
No, I'm not playing at the moment still, but we had a game the weekend actually called off, would you believe, because couldn't get a referee. So just a shout out to anyone out there, lads. There's a huge, massive problem in this country at the moment, lack of referees at the club level. You see that yourself. Get onto your branch if you're any interested in doing it. Like it's happening a lot in rugby at the moment. It's killing it. Like there's just isn't enough referees out there.
Lack of referees in the country.
We've huge. It's a massive problem in the country at the moment. Really lack of referees. Like so.
I do notice that the likes of like Andy Brace and stuff is just reffing on every game. He's on the touchline or he's reffing. I'm just like, these guys are flat out. And women, Holly Davidson. Shout out to Holly Davidson who did the World Cup 15s final and the 7s final. Yeah. So she's flying it, but obviously they're all doing every single game all over the world.
They're moving up the ranks quicker as well. I know a few guys myself that got into refereeing recently, and they're climbing the ranks. Like they're reffing AIL within a few months if you're good at it. Yeah. So like there's a huge pathway there, like for a really good job and a really good career if you've interest in refereeing. So.
Actually, ironically, I was asked by Helen O'Reilly to shout out to Helen. She used to referee, but she came to me after I was meant to retire, probably around 2018, 2019, to see what I referee, and I thought this was a good idea, but then I was like, I'm not sure because I don't abide by the laws now on the pitch when I play, so I'm hardly going to be a hypocrite now and try and implement them. But maybe it might be a career down the line for me.
Yeah, funny enough, Johnny Lacey actually gave me a ring a few years ago, 2-3 years ago at this stage, asking me to become a ref when he knew I was kind of looking at finishing up rugby because I have the law degree and obviously I have the rugby knowledge, and I was like, you know what, Johnny, it's just not going to be for me, man. I just don't think.
I thought you'd be a good referee.
I would definitely. That's the route Bracey went down, and Johnny took him under his wing. And look at Bracey now. Bracey's one of the best referees in the world at the moment.
It's a really good career option because you get to travel the world, and obviously you're in and
well paid full time. Yeah.
I just couldn't deal with the lads slagging me, they'd be like, give it up, Greg, will you?
You have survived us two now for a long time, so I think you're well weathered now for slagging.
Yeah. But anyway, anyone looking for a good career option, looking for referees in Ireland and all over the world, it's a great career choice. But a game in the weekend we really want to talk about is Ireland-Fiji. Probably not the most memorable one. Ireland won 35-17. A lot of fellas got their kind of debuts and threw their hand up for Andy Farrell, but it wasn't the greatest game, was it, Lindsay?
No. When the crowd is doing the Mexican wave towards the end of the game, I mean, it's saying a lot for you. Ireland did not score between the 25th and 60th minute. Like, that's not good enough considering Fiji were down to 13 men at one stage for like 10 minutes, yellow cards, red cards. It was just, I suppose we talk about depth and giving people opportunity, and look, it's going to be that. It was always probably going to be that game, but I think they probably, considering the amount of visits they had to their Fijian 22 now, they really left the game behind.
What do you make of it, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, look, Fiji started well. Their opening try was class. I love watching Fiji in attack. It's a pity, like, they just have their discipline is absolutely shocking. because they have a bit of structure there now under Vern Cotter, and he has made them a better side.
Yep.
You know, but yeah, look, I mean, the way I look at the positives, I thought Kieran Treadwell is someone who's really come out in the last while. Like, he was really good last week as well off the bench, and he's a guy that when he first came in a few years ago, like, kind of didn't seem like he cut the mustard internationally, and he's really improved. Nick Timoney had a great game. Great to see
I
him
thought
get
he
an
was
opportunity.
brilliant.
McCluskey again, I mean, that man, like, for the size of him, first of all, it takes 3 men every time to tackle him. He just kind of stands there, swats him off, has all the time in the world, has beautiful hands off left and right. Like, for me, like, I know Hume was a great player there, and I know Chris Farrell is dealing with stuff off the pitch at the moment, but for me, if you look at your block of 4 centres, he has to be in there.
I
as
think
one of your
so.
4 centres.
Yeah, I can see Stuart McCluskey being a squad player, such a good guy to have around. He played the full 80 minutes as well, which I was delighted with. I kept kind of looking for him on the pitch, making sure he was still on. Obviously, he's got over that hand injury. So he got a good 80 minutes in, played really well defensively and offensively. So he's definitely kind of stuck up his hand, being like, Andy Farrell, I'm your man if you need me.
And he joined in the mall with Mac Hansen. I was like, get in there, boys. Look at the backs trying to, be big man there now.
Yeah,
So,
he did, yeah. He's a big man, Stuart McCluskey.
I know,
Oh
yeah.
my
We'd
God.
take him in the mall, no problem. In you come.
Yeah, but do you know what? It was a kind of a scrappy game. And in fairness now, let's not take it away from Fiji. Fiji have improved over the years. They finally kind of pulled together their athletes. A lot of fellas come over from the sevens team and they're well able to play ball. 2 of the tries they scored
They were fantastic tries.
Fantastic tries. The first one that Jason mentioned there, they went down the wing, absolutely scorched down the wing there. And then the second one where they kind of played around the middle, offload, Balakoon got caught and they went through the middle. Like, unbelievable tries. Like, so fair play to Fiji, he stepped up. But a couple of guys, who do you think threw up their hands for the World Cup selection for next year, or even Six Nations before that in an Irish context?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say definitely Treadwell is a guy that I probably wouldn't have thought would have been in that conversation at all to be a second row. And I think he's to be in that, because what you're going to bring 5, 6 second rows, like, and there's huge competition there, like just in Leinster alone, never mind Ireland. So he's a guy I think is in for a shout. I think Nick Timoney put his hand up there for a guy, another really tough area to get into.
I was just going to say,
Jack Crowley, I thought did a good job off the bench. I think all of a sudden, you had the 2 Byrne brothers in there for a while. You had Jack Carty in there, and Jack Crowley's going to come in out of the cold really quick, like more than anything, like, because he wasn't really in the picture at all. Like, he's uncapped, played well in the emerging tour. I think he's a guy that, like, he could be that third choice out half come.
I'd like to see him. I think right now there's something about him, isn't there? There's something different, to something, I don't know, warm about him, positive. And I think, look, you don't want to see him coming in on the opportunity of an injury like Joey Carberry received, but at the same time, he took the opportunity when it came to him, and he got a good 35 minutes, wasn't it, under his belt? So
what do you think of Jeremy Lockman? I thought Jeremy Lockman had a good game.
Really good, because I think that was an area I'm concerned about, as the depth of our front row, especially when it's such an area where there's an awful lot of injuries. Cian Healy came on and he scored in his 120th appearance, but at the same time I think Lockman gives us something of a ball playing, a little bit like Tom O'Toole. So I'm happy. I thought he did great. I thought Prendergast as well, he came in as lock instead of as the back row. So I think he's a man who's been thereabouts training. So I think the depth of the squad is good. And as Andy Farrell alluded to, like, whether it's some players off the boil at the minute or we've injuries, I think his depth is good at the minute.
I think there's no one really to kind of throw up their hand to be like, I'm going to start for you, Andy Farrell, but a lot of fellas have kind of put up their hand to be in the squad,
in the conversation,
the conversation, being like, I can fill in if one of the top lads is out, which is kind of what we need.
Well, Jimmy O'Brien as well, as
Jimmy
the utility
O'Brien,
full back, like, he can play now. He's shown us he can play centre, he can play in the wings, he can play full back, and obviously Hugo Keenan has had, even to come in last week and play the way he played after being out for so long and have no rugby under his belt since the tour in New Zealand. Said a lot of our reliance on him, but I think Jimmy came in there and had another good performance.
I've been saying that for weeks. I was worried, like, when we lose Keenan, like, I know we have a lot of full backs, but, like, I mean, I don't know, like, the likes of someone like a Mike Lowry or someone like even like putting a Simon Zebo or Jordan Armour back in there, very different kind of full back, and I don't think suits Ireland's game at the moment. Like, a flashy full back, no disrespect to them, whereas Keenan is so safe, but he also has the skills to do it when needed, and I think that's the kind of mold that Jimmy O'Brien fits as well. You trust him back there, and it's such a pivotal position. You need to trust him as much as you trust anyone in any position as your full back.
Yeah, exactly. Jimmy's I kind of use the word facilitator. They're just working away there, moving their wingers, picking lines, doing passes, making tackles. And I think a good full back, Rob Kearney for years, like, he just was doing his job.
Safe as houses.
Safe as houses. Never worry about him trying something crazy. So I think Jimmy would slot in easily into that slot, but obviously Hugo Keenan's going to be the number one full back. But Jimmy, what a person to have in the squad to cover your entire back line from 10 to 15. I'd say if he stays fit, he's going to be.
If you can do it cold off the bench, South Africa at 13, you can do it on any day in any position.
Yeah,
for him to come in like the way he came in like out of the cold, just in your, what was it? How long was gone in the game? Was there 20 minutes gone?
What, against South Africa?
Yeah, against South Africa. To come in and do what he did there,
minutes,
like his stock is now permanently up after that. So
yeah, well, you forgot the full game against Fiji, like, and I was really impressed with Jimmy. But the thing is, obviously, he doesn't want to be on the bench. You know, he's obviously putting his hand up to try and get a starting position, but I don't see where he'd slot in if everyone's fit. And speaking of people being fit, Robbie Henshaw went off after 4 minutes, was it? Poor Gary Ringrose, I'd say, was barely sitting on the bench. And he's like, up and in, and here you go, Gary, earn your keep for the week. And Gary obviously had another unbelievable game, but kind of worried about Robbie Henshaw now. He's been out for, 2 weeks in a row?
Yeah.
He's been very injury prone for the last few years. He's just unlucky and gets these niggly things. But I think the big question for me for next week is Bundy Aki. His suspension is up next week. Do you stick with McCluskey and Ringrose, or do you bring Aki straight back into the starting lineup? I mean, I still think McCluskey deserves another game inside there, and maybe Gary needs a break because he was supposed to get one against Fiji. Yeah. Do you know, and maybe put Aki and in with McCluskey and see what they're like together.
I think McCluskey deserves to keep his spot and give him another crack. He even said in an interview he had with the IRFU media team that he plays better when he gets consistent games, and he says he obviously plays with Ulster week in, week out, so he wants a couple of games with Ireland. That's why he was running to get back for this Fiji game. We'd like to see him at 12 against Australia, give him a go against a top tier team, even though Australia lost against Italy, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. But McCluskey, I think, is doing well there, and if Henshaw's out, we probably need someone that's consistent like McCluskey.
Yeah, I think McCluskey deserves to start. I think he deserves consistency. I think he's put up his hand. I think other than his injury against South Africa, I think he was standing out up until he was taken off at that moment. Like, he was involved in some big plays for us. And to be honest, I think Aki, I'm still upset with him. That's terrible, isn't it? About his red card. And I think right now, I am. I'm still upset with him. I'm going to say it. I'm sorry, Bundy. I like you. But, like, do you know what I mean? I just don't think you deserve just to walk back in because of your name. You're an exceptional player. But there's been lads working there, and I think it goes against the culture of your team, personally. But he's still so much to offer. But there's been guys taking opportunity there now, and I just don't think they should be just hacked out now because Bundy's back in. I would start McCluskey and Ringrose. Yeah. And then have Bundy come off as an impact player. And I think he'll come on impacted hopefully in the right way and make that amends and be a game changer if it's a close game, because I think it will be a close game. I mean, 12 changes Australia had this week against Italy, albeit that they lost, but I think we'll see those 12 changes reverse come this weekend against Ireland. So I think Bundy will play a big part, but I wouldn't be starting him personally. Yeah,
I'd be interested to see what Andy Farrell does with Bundy now, but I'm just so impressed with Gary Ringrose. Just every single game he plays well.
He's unreal.
Defensively, offensively, everything he does is he's just the glue of the team. Yeah. And I think if you don't have a rugby brain, you don't really notice all the small things he's doing. Like, he's unbelievable. I don't even want to think about not having him, because he's, for me, is one of the names on the team sheet straight away. Yeah. Johnny Sexton, Gary Ringrose and Tyke Furlong for me, and Tyke Byrne obviously. Unbelievable. Good to see Tyke had another good game as well. What you make of his game?
Yeah, I mean, look,
Tyke Furlong talk about now as captain.
Yeah, I know he did. He had a great game, in fairness to him. He threw a couple of passes there, like kind of 20-metre passes off the left and right there in the first half. And look, I mean, you get what you get from Tyke Furlong. You know, he doesn't have a bad game. It was great to see him captain the team. I think it's an honour for him, like, that he deserved. Like, he's a guy that's been so influential since he came in. How long ago when he first came back in? Was it back in 2016? Was it 2017? When he came in, like, and he's just been a mainstay. Yeah. Like, 6 successful tests. He started with the Lions as well. I mean, that's unheard of. So good to see him captain. Good Irish guy, a good honest Irishman. I thought his comments in the press conference on Tuesday, whatever it was, when he got announced as captain, it was like, you know, what do you dream of when you're as a young fella? I was like, well, I didn't dream of being Irish captain. He was like, what do you dream of? I was like, no, like, you know, my mother's roast dinner and spuds and gravy, like. I was like, and he's being honest, like, because he's like, I never dreamed of being Ireland captain. So he's just there and he's just living the moment and going, here I am, the best tight in the world.
He's just unapologetically himself, like, and I love that about him. There's no crap. And I don't know if he'll obviously do another stint as captain, but he kind of stepped up and he's obviously in that leadership group now in the senior team. But Johnny, if he's fit, will obviously be the captain for Ireland. But you touched on it there a while ago, Jason, is Jack Crowley. Yeah. And he got his debut. Shout out to Jack. Do you want to give his background for everyone? Where he's come up through the ranks?
I mean, he's a guy like this, really impressed at under 20s level. I think the big story is, you might be aware of this, is a couple of years back when O'Gara went over to La Rochelle, he actually tried to steal Crowley and tried to bring him in. So at the time, I think we had Jay Hanran and Carberry and Ben Healy coming through, and I think we had
Ian Keatley was probably still knocking around.
there was a few guys there at the time. We'd 4 or 5 odd ass, like, and he's like, Munster was like, we're adamant, no, this guy has got a future. And if Ronan O'Gara like is trying to bring you over to La Rochelle at like 19 years of age, you got something about you.
Yeah, big time.
You know what I mean? So it's good. Like, as in, there's a lot of talk, and like, I'm in Limerick, obviously. I'm sure there's a lot of talk in Cork and the rest of the counties in Munster, but there is a lot of talk about it. Everyone just says it, as you said. There's something about him. He's got a bit about him. He's that little bit different. He doesn't, like, the pressure doesn't seem to faze him. You know, he's coming in to international rugby. He came straight into some big matches for Munster. It just seems to be, look, don't put too much pressure on him. Don't do this kind of thing what they do over in England with their soccer players and hype this guy up to be, he's going to be a superstar and he's brilliant. He's got the potential. He seems to have his head screwed on. I think he'll go places. Just give him time. Be patient with him.
That was my thing. I actually said it when I was sitting down watching the match with my family on the weekend, and everyone was just like, Jack Crowley, and all the media was going crazy about him, and I was like, leave the lad alone. Like, he's what, 20? He's young 20s, and he pressure. You're going to be the next Johnny Sexton. Come on, let's see it. It's like, let the lad play his game. Like, I know Jack well because he came into the sevens team for a while. He's so meticulous, very particular about his game. He gets everything right, does his extras. Like, he's one of those guys that you're like, okay, if he keeps going this way, he's going to be the man.
Sky's the limit.
But don't put the pressure on him. Everyone listen, stop at Jack Crowley. Just let him do his thing, all right? He's playing really well. He's got his debut, got his first kick for Ireland, slotted through the post. It's obviously very calm demeanour about him that he's bringing through to senior ranks. I heard he impressed down in Emerging Ireland as well, like in and around the camp and stuff, which is great, but leave him alone just to do his thing now, that's all right?
100%.
He seemed he seemed very calm guy, like his post-match interview, that he didn't like lose himself. He alluded to a great group of players that took him under his wing, and he alluded to as well the management team. So I think hopefully he'll be very much protected in that sense, and hopefully he won't get involved in any of the media frenzy and the hype. He seems a guy who just really loves his rugby, and actually one of the guys from my club was showing a picture where he was a ball boy with the club, like Pat's from Cork. So he's just seemed a guy who's really steeped in the history of rugby up through the ranks from like just community foundation level, and has reached his boyhood dream of playing for Ireland. So to me, and the brief kind of interviews I've seen of him and is playing, I don't think hopefully he'll lose the run of himself under the pressure. I don't think
he's already in the toughest position on the pitch. Like, I mean, to be an out half, like an international out half, it doesn't come harder. It really doesn't. Like, he has enough pressure on his shoulders. Let him do his thing. Yeah,
he really has his stuff together. I trained with him for a season, and even talking to people coming up from Cork, that all the way through school and 20s and the whole way up, he's really had his stuff together, and he's the guy that's always leading the charge. And now he's finally gotten to his boyhood dream. He's got his first cap, so I do think he's going to push on from here. But also we have to remember there's guys like Ben Healy that were sitting at home watching the game the weekend. He had a great game against Springboks A, and there's all the two Byrne brothers. I bumped into one of them in Ranelagh the other day. Like, these guys are still sitting there as well. So
Jack Carty's having a great season, playing great rugby for Connacht as well at the moment. Like, so there's also Billy Byrne still there, who's still doing a great job for Ulster. So there's guys there. There's plenty of guys there. So
I think we're good in depth, but again, it's who fits the mould for us as Ireland and what style of rugby we want to play. And like, that might change. Like, obviously you'll go into a World Cup looking at your opposition, your pool stages, but then you can't really look at, you know, what are the variables when we go through to knockout stages. But I think, like, how many times, like, I don't think we've had an era where we've had so many names for potentials in the 10 jersey. So it's a good spot because it's so pivotal. It's such a pivotal position for any team, you know, to be successful.
100%. And obviously Joey picked up a knock, and we're hoping he's not too injured off the back of it, but it was a crazy hit, wasn't it, Lindsay?
For God's sake, I don't know what was wrong with people the weekend. You know, we'll go into Pierre Steph de Titan and God, like, you know, again, when you can see, when you're kind of like, I've been there, you're reckless, you want to get in and get, you're not reckless, but you're intense, you want to make an impact. But in rugby, if you've time to see what your next move is, then just don't do it. And I think that was the case for the tackle was made in Carberry. You knew what you were doing coming in.
It was in open space. There was plenty of time to assess it. It wasn't kind of like a quick decision. Like, he was quite deep, and he came in and he kind of, there was absolutely no need for it. Like, normally, like, you kind of, I would feel sorry in some instances and go, oh, look, come here, he got it wrong. He set up at the last minute. There was no sliding up at the last minute. He was there and he up high, and he came from a distance in a huge amount of space and yeah, it was a nasty one, and I'm sick and tired of seeing it, nobody, to be honest with you.
It was a nasty one, and I am surprised that Joey stayed awake. off the back foot.
100%, I thought he was gone.
Yeah.
into the jaw. Usually that would knock someone out, and
Yeah.
you went in between two back rows. I think 2 Fijian back rows, and I was like, Joey. The fact didn't even stay down. I was like, you are made of tough stuff, man. So I'm just hoping that he's okay Monday morning, and that we might see him again this weekend. But
Yeah, speedy recovery for him.
yeah, delighted to see your man get a red card. You can't be just throwing shoulders at fellas like that. It's so dangerous.
I was reckless.
Yeah, I don't even want to give it too much airtime anymore because it's so silly, but we need to get that out of the game. And before now we get on to the Australian preview this weekend, our very own Pat was speaking to Will Skelton, who plays at La Rochelle in Australia, and he was over speaking to him about his career with the A Season With series with Rugby Joe. So take a look at this.
That's one word you can say is settled. Yeah, I think we've there's no real excuse now. Like meaning wise, I've got to know everything that's said when it's in French. There's no excuse for me now. Ulti's actually thrown me under the bus because he came in fluent French. So he literally knows everything. But no, I think definitely settled. Excited for another season. I think what we achieved last year was amazing. But for now, when the season starts, it's always about trying to back it up and trying to see where we can take it. Yeah.
What was your own? Because I remember getting into that Champions Cup final. Like, how little had you played or been on the pitch before you got out onto the pitch?
So I'd done my calf maybe 5 weeks before, and I think it was a small tear, but they'd forecast for 4 weeks to be out, and that was just on the final of the Champions Cup, and I managed to get it right just for 1 week before, and we literally capped it at 15 minutes. So I played 15 minutes against La Francais. I didn't warm up with the team. I literally stayed inside when the team warm up because he didn't want to warm up my calf and then get it cold and then come back on. And they literally went, if someone gets injured, we're just going to play a 14 until the last 15 to get me right. And I was very rusty in that game. Like when I came on, I felt like horrendous. The lungs were, they got a hammering. It just felt a bit off rugby wise. But then, it's the Champions Cup final. You just step up in that big game. Had a full week of training. I felt really good, and then we were lucky enough to get the win at the end.
I seen, what was it like? Went to Leinster for some of their pre-season, and it's almost like they've kind of learned their lesson maybe in a way, and they're used to playing these South African sides now. So they've got in big Jason Jenkins, a big South African now. Into
I saw that.
It's almost like trying to Skelton-proof themselves for it.
No way. I didn't do anything far out. I saw they boosted their recruitment. I think that's what, mate. That's trying to get the best players. They already got a bloody great team anyway, so they know what they needed to get him as well. They was going to be unstoppable now.
I saw, what is it, out the front there, like, I don't know if you know if there's a story behind it. I haven't even asked anybody else yet, but there's like a banged up old car parked out in the car park out there. Is that what somebody has to drive around in?
So we got like a fine system. It's a roulette, so it's basically, you spin the wheel and there's different segments of the different punishments. So if you're late, if you wear the wrong kit, if you do something, if you get a yellow card on the weekend or a red card, knock on wood, no more red cards. And one of them is a Twingo. So the club, we put money in for the fines. I think there's €150. There's one called the Twingo, which is that car, and that's literally the club captain Saz bought this car. I don't know. I think he bought it for €500, and literally, and whenever you have to drive it for the week, and at the end of your week, you've got to have modified the car a bit. That's why you've got the flames, you've got the spoiler. I think there was a dildo in there somewhere. There's a lot of stuff like ferry, bloody handles, subwoofers and stuff like that. So some of the boys love getting the Twingo because they get the chance to modify it and do whatever they want with it. So I'm lucky I haven't been able to get it yet, but I think I'll do something special to it too.
I was reading an interview with yourself from a while back, and you were talking about Raj and playing under Raj, and we were talking about this old PlayStation 2 game rugby to do. Is that still something that you guys might still play around with?
Yeah, we still got it. Actually, we just brought it out again. So like one of the boys took the adapter, so we couldn't play for a while, but it's come back and we just jumped on it. Alton, actually, he's a pretty good gamer, so he's come in and he bought us PS4, and so we've had to put the PS2 away with Roger's 98 of the star, his rating there. But yeah, it's been good. Like we've got a nice little what do you call it? A little salon there that we play our games, and when there's times before meetings, we catch up, have coffees and stuff like that. So it's just a nice way to get through the day when we're not always on rugby. So.
Would you love actually in a way like to, FIFA, it's just being released again, like would you love to see a kind of,
Obviously, yeah, always. I think we've been wanting everyone who love rugby away, do you just want a game like that every year, but I don't know if it must be a money thing, or, EA Sports not really, or the game's not really seeing much value in having that, but I know I'd definitely buy it if the games came through, but yeah, I think there is rugby games out at the moment, anyway. So I just don't know how good the quality is.
For you, kind of, being with moving on from Saracens and having your time at Waratahs like that, what do you kind of like about, for somebody who might not know much about the area of La Rochelle, what do you kind of like about the area living here?
Oh, it's amazing. It's not a very big town, I think there's 78,000 people here, right near the water, great produce. The town absolutely adore rugby. They love rugby. You see the flags everywhere. I think just it's a small town. Everywhere that you want to go is so close, and it's like summer all the time. It's like you get beautiful weather. That's one thing that really was really attractive when we signed here, is that lifestyle-wise. The weather's not that far off England. You just get way more sun. So I think moving here was an amazing choice. My wife loved it straight away. First day we got here, we had lunch with the president, and they brought out the oysters and the prawns, langoustines, and my wife looked at me and said, "We've got to sign here," I think, because she loves seafood. So I think just that being such a small town who really gets behind the team, I think for me that's been amazing.
And what's it like, as a bunch of players, does everybody live close enough? Like, is there is there one estate maybe?
No, I think because I said it was a small town, like you can live 10 minutes away and it's so close. Do you know what I mean? Like there's also an island off, it's a holiday destination, Ile de Ré, which a few boys live there. Rog lives there. He's got a massive mansion up there, 12 bedrooms for all his kids, and no, I'm kidding. But there's a lot of boys who live on the island. And a lot of boys who buy the houses and live not far from here as well, which is great. Not far from training. Everyone's close. Whenever we have a barbecue, it's not far to get to. The town's great.
Dylan was chatting to him. He spoke about now everybody knows about those scenes at the port when you guys came back.
Yeah.
The place was hopping. I was kind of saying, he said one of the bits that he loved most about it was, he said it was almost like a wait at the airport for 2 or 3 hours, and that was the bit that he almost enjoyed as much. Everyone was just sitting around looking at each other.
No, exactly, yeah. A massive delay at the airport after we won. We had to get back, but just thinking, I remember that because a lot of the boys who didn't play were quite tired. Obviously, they'd been drinking all day, and then everyone was napping. I don't know if he told you, so there's like a little lounge in that, and everyone was sleeping. And I don't know why, after the game, I was gone. I was so tired. I've never been more tired after a game. But then when we got to the airport, I sort of picked up. So I was drinking warm beers, trying to get everyone up. That's when we had some funny conversations, some funny stories, some good music being played. No, that was a great time.
The World Cup's coming up next year as well. Would you love to be involved, I suppose, especially being in France as well?
I would love to. Yeah, no, of course. That's obviously the goal. That's the end goal, especially now with how the rules have panned out. You want to be just playing really good footy to be selected, and that starts here at La Rochelle. That's playing week in, week out, and improving as a player. I think if I'm playing well enough, hopefully I can get selected. But it's still a year away. Anything can happen. I got injured a few times last year, so hopefully I'm backing up for my team.
Great stuff. As we alluded to before, you can obviously catch the rest of that series on Rugby Joe's Instagram and TikTok, where we'll be chatting to the Bristol Bears and La Rochelle this season. Back to you, boss.
Yeah, so we're obviously chatting to Will Skelton there, who plays with Australia, and we have Australia up this weekend. But before we talk about that game, they lost to Italy in Florence. What was it, 28-27? Unbelievable for Italy, isn't it, Lindsay?
It is. I think it's nice. They played some good stuff. Everyone's given out about I don't know, Australia should be beating Italy, but I think we're being disrespectful to countries like Italy and Argentina who are really investing, you know, and we're probably starting to see those young Italians come up now and really start to give back to the senior team. So for some countries it's a long old road to get, you know, depth in their programmes, but yeah, hopefully we've coming up. I think let me see, Capuzzo had 2 tries. Capuzzo.
What a player.
And Bruno as well. So, I mean, Italy were well worth their win. You know, I don't think they should be taken or undermined with that. But obviously Australia would be panicking about the depth of their squad. A lot of changes. Will Skelton, 135 kgs of him, started his first test for Australia since 2015, I think. So, yeah, they're starting to get ready for a World Cup. But you have to kind of think 10 months out, how many games have you got left now to blood these players after a poor performance?
Yeah, there was a lot of changes for Australia, but still, Australia's still a top tier team. They're in the Rugby Championship, and for Italy to beat them is just amazing for rugby as a whole, especially Italians, because Italy have just been plugging away for years, always getting a beating in the Six Nations, like, and then they beat South Africa in 2016 in Florence, in the same place they beat Australia. So obviously
don't move out of Florence.
Don't
Italy.
move out of Florence.
Not?
That's the space to be. I think Italy beat Wales at the end of the Six Nations as well, so they're definitely coming up the ranks, and you're delighted for them. Like, they just work so hard, and they seem to be so passionate. And fellas like Capuzzo coming up, and Monty Ioane in the wing was unbelievable.
Yeah, he had some good.
That's something they didn't have before. They have these X Factor players now. I know Monty was with Benetton for a while. He's after signing for, is it the Melbourne Rebels, Pat, I think, over in Super Rugby, because he left to go back to Australia. But he's a guy that would walk into most international games. Capuzzo is only 22. He's the guy that broke onto the scene with that incredible try against Wales in the Six Nations last year. He scored 2 tries again the weekend. He's just been nominated for World Rugby Breakthrough Player of the Year. He's got a big contract. He's with Toulouse now. That guy is like that's something they didn't have before. And they've got structure. And they've got a good coach in there as well. So I hope now that this isn't just another kind of dip in the water and they kind of fall apart again in the Six Nations. I'd love to see them get a scalp or 2 in the Six Nations.
Yeah, I'd love to see at least 2 wins of them. Except Ireland, exactly. Well, I think that was the thing, wasn't it? Run out of test matches now, and Andy Farrell will have to probably reassess the Six Nations and probably start to build his starting 15 or his top 23 with going into a World Cup. And you're probably not going away to Italy now this year thinking, oh, I'll start to blood in the changes. You know, it's going to be a big championship, and then you've only 3 test games, I think, in August before you hit a World Cup. So yeah, like, that's the importance now. He's kind of run out of time for changes, and Italy aren't the rollover they once were. I don't think.
Italy aren't going to roll over anymore.
No,
they have these superstars littered throughout their team, and it's great to see. Even like Tommaso Allen came on and started at 10, and he's an incredible player. For him not to be able to start in Italy, that's a good problem for them. So delighted for Italy, well done. But we've Australia up next, and I presume they're going to go back to their full strength team. How do you look at that game this weekend?
I mean, look, you've got Michael Hooper coming back in, you've got Tupou coming back in, James Slipper coming back in, Nick White, like absolute superstars. I mean, I don't know, what way do we look at this game the weekend? Do we completely switch everything around, go back to our strongest team and hope to go out and have a real intense test match? I think so, probably. You know, it's November. It's, 10 months out of a World Cup?
10 months,
I think we go, no offence, just go all out. I think Australia are going to be much better, and it's going to be a good test for us. And yeah, I wouldn't make... I'd bring back in Sexton. Obviously, I'd give Gibson Park at 9. The centre debate we've already discussed. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, I'd keep Mack on the wing. I think Balakoon on the other wing. I think he's playing brilliant. I'd bring Hugh Keenan back in full back. I'd get James Ryan back in there. I'd get Peter O'Mahony back in. I'd get... Who else is there to whack in? I'd put our strongest possible team out.
Probably the same. Near enough, probably the same team starting against South Africa.
Basically,
really, the pack will be under pressure to get that, like, good set piece ball, you know, and I thought it was key. And obviously the breakdown area, which probably Australia were guilty of against Italy and lost an awful lot of ball. They look lethargic. I think they will probably look to target again our breakdown to slow down our ball, because that's where Ireland are really, really successful now at the minute, is a bit like Leinster-esque, like just, 3 to 5 second rusts and that ball is moving, and we've got players coming in, and it's very, very hard to play against. So I'd be the same as you. I think we need to start our strongest team, because I think this Australian team and Dave Rennie will have a point to prove on their especially after 2 losses. You know what I mean? Australia are a proud nation, a proud rugby nation. So I think it'd be nice for us to play under that pressure. Still being world number 1. We've beaten South Africa. We've backed it up after beating New Zealand. So I think to get the scalp against Australia, again, I don't want us to go, and I was only having this conversation with my dad over the weekend, this excitement and expectation for us. I don't want that, but obviously I want us to, again, kind of get another
We're still going to win the World Cup,
galvanise
though.
them
Like,
in.
we're obviously going to win the World Cup,
100%, but I mean, I don't want to say that live on this podcast. You heard it here first,
my
people.
God.
No, I think you made a good point there with Dave Rennie though as well. Dave Rennie is one of those coaches that he can just pull something out on game day. He's just a very clever coach, very tactical coach, and he's a guy I'd be wary of. Like he'll have done a lot of analysis in Ireland, like, and he can just come out with something because he's done it. Like, and he's the guy that gets big scalps out of nowhere from time to time because he's one of the best coaches in the world. So I would be. There ain't going to be any pushovers Australia, even though this isn't the strongest Australia we've seen in recent memory.
Yeah, but they're going to bring back their big boys, as you said. Hooper, White, Slipper, Tupou, Kellaway, they're all going to go back in. It's going to be I presume, the strongest Australian team they can have, because Ireland are the test game now. Everyone comes in to try and play Ireland. Like, we used to go try and play New Zealand. We still do that, but like, we're the number one in the world, so people want to come and play against us. So they're obviously going to come and have a good go off the boys. So you'd like to see Andy Farrell use it as a proper go now in the build up to the Six Nations and the World Cup, is play our full strength team, see can we do 3 weeks in a row, back to back games, 3 wins, because when else in the season do you get 3 international games back to back, like, you know, unless you're in a big competition? So it's unbelievable prep for the World Cup coming up. But we'd just like to see maybe some young fellas on the bench and give them a couple of minutes on the weekend. What you think? Think of Prendergast has made a way onto the bench, or Timoney, who got man of the match against Fiji?
Yeah, I don't know who I'd put in out of them, because I think Timoney actually had a great game. He just was a workhorse. He just continued his form for Ulster and brought it up a level to international. But he's gone into such a tough position in the back row. Like, I can't see us not picking Van der Fleer. I mean, Van der Fleer, O'Mahony, Kenan Darcy had another fantastic game, just lovely, sublime little touches. Jack Conan probably come on, and we're starting to gradually see him come back in a little bit into the form. I'd love to see probably Prendergast on it, but that's unfair to Timoney. But I think Prendergast is just someone who needs to get these big games under his belt, because I think realistically I could see him making the squad, you know, if he continued in the form that he's been in, and you can kind of see him stepping up for Connacht into that more leadership role. So but it's unfair in Timoney, but I can't see him breaking into that.
It's crazy to see that, like, Timoney has an unbelievable game, 2 tries, man the match, and we're still like, I don't know if he'll make it into the team.
It's terrible, isn't it?
It's such a good problem.
It's probably our strongest areas of back row. I think the only person there I think it really has a chance of getting in, and it's just because of the circumstances. I think Jack Crowley could be on the bench because the nature of Joey's injury, it's a head injury. If he's concussed, you shouldn't be playing the weekend. It's as simple as that. You know, and considering the nature of his bang, there's a good chance he is. No, I'm not a doctor, not making assumptions, but I would say there's a good chance they won't risk him this weekend because it's a head injury. Yeah. So, I mean, Jack Crowley, even if he gets 20 minutes off the bench against Australia,
that'd be nice for him, and I think he deserves it.
Yeah, true. And with, like, the European Cup coming up in December and stuff, Joey's going to have big games to keep his minutes up. So, yeah, it'd be cool to see Crowley on the bench. But one other thing I wanted to kind of touch on with the Irish selection before we move on is the back three. It seems like Mac Hansen has gotten his position. Robert Balakin's got 2 games in a row now. Keenan's going to have 15 probably. Is that, to think, is the back three for Ireland now in the next couple of months, or we still have, like, the likes of James Lowe to come back in?
Just want to say, there's someone. I mean,
do you know what I mean?
James Lowe comes back in when James Lowe is at his best. When he's at his best, he is unstoppable. And like, just before he got injured last time he was at Ireland against New Zealand and stuff, he was incredible. And I personally think our strongest back three is Lowe, Hansen, and Keenan. But
I was thinking the same, because he gives that extra left foot as well, didn't it? That we saw from Jimmy O'Brien, and I think that gives us a different dynamic on an exit and just box kicking. And if that's our game play for that opposition, then it gives us just a different dynamic. So, and he's a big winger who
truck.
Like, I mean, you miss him absolutely plowing over people. You know, he's like, you could be a forward if you're starting to slow down your later
a nice
years,
balance with Hansen and Lowe as well, because you've got
yeah.
that big strong winger with a big boot, when you've got Hansen who's a playmaker, and the boys can switch wings and they can slot in at receiver, and it's like Lowe loves coming in off his wing, like, with these hard lines inside off the 9 and
always
inside off the 10, and he's looking for it, whereas Hansen just kind of floats around, and we call him a busy bee, I suppose. What Hansen is, he gets into Oliver because, like, he played 10 for a lot of his career, like, so I think that's a good balance. And then you've got your bricks and a mortar with Keenan at full back.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think Balakun will get the shout again against Australia though this weekend?
I think he deserves it. I think he got very little time. You know, even when he gets chances, he takes them. You know, and I know he was kind of bamboozled a little bit for some of the Fiji breaks and stuff like that. But I think that again comes a time. He's only 5 caps.
And he's coming back from a big injury as well. And you know, he's a guy. I mean, it's very unfair to say that Lowe will come straight back in, because he actually has been very impressive.
Yeah, he has.
And he's a great player, but I don't know. It's interesting to see that there's still more guys. Like, you're forgetting about, you've Andrew Conway still to come back in as well. I don't think Keith Earls is finished yet. And I think as soon as you start writing off Keith Earls, you're in trouble, because that guy's going to come back and probably be in the World Cup next year. So it's going to be interesting to see.
It is going to be interesting to see for sure. Another massive game of the weekend was France-South Africa. It was a massive game. It was a proper test match. France won 27-26. There's a lot of people giving out about it, one being Rassie Erasmus. The man needs to get off his phone. What do you make of that?
I don't know. I don't know how I feel. Yeah, I think he's like petulant and, he's given out. But sometimes it's nice reading against the board. I'm like, he just, you never know. It's like a soap opera, isn't it?
Yeah, it's entertaining, like, that the director of rugby of South Africa, the world champions, just goes on his phone and starts tweeting to the world.
He's going too far now. Like, this kind of thing, like, he's undermining the referees too much. I love when he's having a bit of fun and he's giving out about the opposition or whatever, or messing about and giving out about world rugby. But to undermine the referees consistently, it's probably, like we said, there's a reason why there's no bloody referees in the country. Yeah. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world. I mean, trying to be a rugby referee, like, not only is there a book of laws about that big, but they're changing every second week when we're rugby these days. It's probably the biggest sport in the world that's when it comes to in terms of being open to interpretation. So many laws and variations are open to interpretation. So you're never going to get it right? And when he came out with that video initially, like, it was hilarious. The Lions video, this big 60-minute video, because it was unprecedented. Yeah. We'd never seen anything like it. But I personally think, and I am Rassie's biggest fan, he's taking it too far. It needs to stop. It's not fair on the referees and the officials. They're not going to. Now, I'm not saying Barnes had a good game. I'm not his biggest fan. I never have been a great.
I'm not his biggest fan.
But I wouldn't say he went out to purposely kind of, catch South Africa out. Like, maybe he was influenced by the crowd, but you're going to be influenced by the home crowd in any home stadium. Yeah. So I think it's very unfair. I think he needs to just take a step back. And I mean, I saw a comment here the other day, and he's making South Africans sound like Salt Africa. That's what they're calling them now.
Salty, yeah.
Do you know? And it's just, I think it's a bad reflection on the country, because we know South Africa are still probably, I would still say, they're the best team in the world. Do you know? Because they're the world champions. So until you become world champions, you're not the best team in the world. Ireland might be number one. France might have beaten them. But South Africa are the world champions. So until whatever is at the end of October next year, they're the best team in the world at the
moment. At the end of the day, South Africa hold the trophy. But I do think one thing that rugby really has going for it compared to other sports is the respect for the officials. You see in soccer, they'll be shouting at the ref up in their faces, where in rugby, you can't say anything to the ref, you're going to get carded. Yeah. And it just seems that the values of the game are kind of slipping when Rassie Erasmus is out tweeting about these refs. And it's like someone going on every Monday morning and analysing your job. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you messed up here, you messed up there. And he's just kind of like low-key, indirectly calling out the French backroom staff for the broadcasting dropping for the 30 seconds that they needed to review.
I will give him that, though, because it's not the first time that's happened. And I like Pat, you mentioned that during the week. It's something that come the World Cup, if they're hosting the World Cup next year, right, and all of a sudden the video screen, because we know, for if anyone's been in, I'm sure you've been in the stadiums in France, and Stade de France was a big game on. If there's a decision against the away team that's a little questionable, all of a sudden the screens go blank, and all of a sudden there's no replays. But if there's an incident that's in favour of a French side, there is 72 angles within 5 seconds. So that is something that the French are cute for and have been well known for so many years. Come World Cup next year, that has to stop.
It is questionable. You picture some Frenchman smoking a fag out in the outside the stadium,
and he's just there.
The bloke, like.
Yeah, that's what everyone's thinking. No, and he's just plugging it out.
I don't know. There's something a bit fishy there, right? And Rassie might have a little bit of a point, but there's ways of going about this.
Of course.
Where does it stop? Like, do we get Joe Smith now on TikTok, like, doing videos? Like, do you know what I mean?
I watched that.
Yeah. Well, for entertainment. Well, it's, as I said, it's refreshing to see that. Like, I do appreciate the values and like the interpretation laws. I would hate to be a referee, and I'm not Barnes' biggest fan, because he's just there's no talking to him. So that's one point I'd say, Rassie, you're giving airtime to someone who he does the same thing for every game he officiates. Like, he's infuriating, but that's him, and he's obviously one of the top referees. He's surpassed now Nigel Owens. It was his 101st Test game. Like, so
he's a hell of a ref. Like.
He is a hell of a ref, but he is infuriating. Like,
of course.
I don't know many times I've wanted to chuck things at the telly at him. Like, I'm like, for God's sake, thank God you've never ref me, because I'd be gone. But like, Look, he had a point. It was a double movement. Like, and Barnes was standing in front of it. I was like, oh, come on, mate. Like, different with the Jimmy O'Brien, because it was kind of 50-50 and it looked like, obviously...
It was double movement.
It was
a triple movement, if anything.
100%. Now, the French one or Jimmy O'Brien's?
No, the French
one.
French
He was like a baby just before they were starting to walk. He was like crawling along to the try line. Like,
no, you're talking about the Sibley Fatale try.
Yeah, if that happened to us, like, we would have been infuriated. Like,
what was that, 78 minutes?
Yeah, it was,
you know, it was
70
like
something minute. That was the one. That was the
and the Willie LaRue was it was as straight as a ruler, that pass. Like, for God's sake, do you know? So he does have points, but like, yeah, you have to have a bit of
I suppose that's the game. Like as Jason said, the rugby is such a hard game to interpret, and everyone's gonna have different angles, different opinions. And I'd even be of the opinion that Falatea's try at the end, that he got shunted by his fellas behind him and pushed over the line.
Fair points, fair points. So but that's there again.
You can argue it till the cows come home. But
no, the timing on that, Jimmy O'Brien's one, you can see the clear out.
We're not talking about Jimmy O'Brien's one.
I know, but on the timing of the clear out. But no, I'm not budging on anything, and I'm a forward. Like, I want the tie head prop to get it, but that was absolutely... He was licking the grass crawling along.
I don't know. I think he got shunted over. Like,
Get out of here.
I don't know. He stops, he goes, he stops, he goes. And like, he came to a complete stop and then he crawls along.
He had a fag and he took out the plug for the big screen and then put it.
No, but the main point you want to take from this is the fact that, like, when it comes to stuff like that, that's our job as the media, right? And the fans and people that watch to come out and tweet and Instagram and TikTok and say, oh, I think that shouldn't have been passed. It's not a director of rugby's job to be out on Twitter to be putting that stuff up and undermining a referee when you're in that position of power. When you're like, you're supposed to, I don't know what's the word I'm trying to use here. Like, I mean, you're just supposed
to have decorum and leadership.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be the values of the game, like, and you're supposed to be the essence of that. Like, and he's not the person that should be doing that.
Yeah, well, we had Louis Ludic on last week, and he was of the opinion that Rassie does this stuff to take the pressure off the players, which is true, because we're now sitting on a podcast talking about Rassie and not talking about South Africa losing and their poor performance. So maybe Rassie is operating at a different mental level and has us all like little puppets, and you're all talking about his.
But would he be first in your list for a night out? Let's be honest in this.
I hear Rassie's great in a night out.
Exactly. So we'd all be like, oh yeah, you should. But no,
in fairness to South Africa, if you look at the game itself, I mean, I don't think South Africa played poorly.
No, I don't think so either.
I think Peter Steph-Dutoit will be embarrassed by himself, by his actions. I think he knew straight away. I think what he did for that red card was reckless, ridiculous, absolutely, like, no excuses whatsoever. He knew straight away when he did it.
Dante has a broken eye socket.
I mean, like, it's shocking. But, like, to lose him so early on, to lose a guy so pivotal, former World Player of the Year in such a pivotal position, and for them to come back in the manner which they did, like, because a lot of people were like, I remember even talking to some of my friends, they were like, okay, that's it now, red card early on in the game over. Is it even worth watching? But yeah, like, they probably should have won that game. Like,
yeah, well, in fairness to Peter Steph-Dutoit, it's his first card he's ever gotten in his career, so he's not a dirty player. He's been a World Player of the Year. Yeah. He obviously blood to the head, and he got hit from behind as well, but then his head went into Dante's face, and suppose he's after breaking his cheekbone. Hopefully he hasn't, but supposedly he has. So, but Steph-Dutoit was like miserable after. He was so upset with what he did. Like, so he's not a bad guy. But
no, he's not a bad. Sorry, I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but I'm saying like it was reckless and it was very dangerous. And it's something that could have. It shouldn't happen again.
But on your point there with the red card, I thought that as well. It was 11 minutes in or something like that.
14, I think.
Was it?
Very early.
Yeah, 14th minute.
And I was like, oh, it's the game over now. France are just going to run riot, and that might be an issue with the game, is that these red cards, which have to happen because these things are so ridiculous, like Joey's one and Steph-Dutoit's one and stuff. But is there kind of a scope for, I was kind of chatting the weekend with a couple of mates, if you give someone a red card, you send them off, then after 20 minutes you can bring on another player in the same position to bring it back to full strength.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're lucky enough then that, well, not lucky, but I suppose for viewers, that DuPont got a red card and kind of even out the playing field.
Right.
Because I do think in this day and age, a red card and losing a player is just, that's the game over. Like, what do you make of it, Lindsay?
It's not. It's actually a good option. It is a good option.
But they tried it over in the Rugby Championship this year.
Oh, have they?
Yeah. They did a 20
And how's it working?
Card. I'll leave you give your opinion first, and I'll tell you what I think.
Well, I suppose it takes away the punishment then for the team losing. Do you know what I mean? For, like, the reason for the red card is you've broken the law, or this. Yeah, you've really done something that merits the red card. So your team should be punished. So, are we having rugby as a spectacle? It puts in question: is it rugby as a spectacle, or is it rugby for the, again, like we've just spoken about, the values of the game? Do you know what I mean? So,
but I think the level that rugby's gotten to now, with how good it is across the board, that players are so intelligent that they're able to pick out the space and find where the missing man on the pitch is, which is fair, and they're going to be start scoring tries straight away, which is fine for maybe 20-30 minutes in my opinion.
Yeah.
But then for like 60 minutes of a game, it's just going to be a whitewash. Like.
But then we had a cracker of a game.
Yeah,
And
I think because DuPont got a red card and South Africa are good enough to kind of hold it together. But I don't know. I just think that it could be an issue in the sense that there's so many red cards, which is great to see.
Yeah.
But then is it just going to ruin games? Imagine the World Cup final, red card straight away, gone.
At the end of the day, though, Greg, I think a red card is a red card. Like, that's why we have a yellow card in place there. So, I mean, if the incident doesn't merit a red, you're off for 10 minutes. Like, I'd say something if we didn't have another card. But, I mean, you go back, if it's a red card offence, you're off. And I know what you're saying, there's a lot of red cards. That's because game has got stricter, but that's for safety reasons, and players are still adapting to. And there's going to be instances like you said, to Peter Sefton one, he was maybe slightly pushed, and the DuPont one was a complete freak accident. But at the end of the day, he could have killed Cheslin Colby, right? So he just needs to be a little bit more careful in that situation. He shouldn't have been going for that because he was not in a position, right? But it was an accident. But at the same time, go back to the original question. A red card is a red card as far as I'm concerned. And if it ruins the game, it ruins the game. But there is teams now who are actually, even Khaleesi was saying it during the week like that, they are actually training in training like with 14 men and with 13 men, preparing for these situations.
Yeah.
In the build up to the Rugby Championship and the World Cup, like so.
And we did the same at Gaelic because obviously the yellow card for women's came in, and I remember training for 2014 World Cup All Ireland final, and Greg McGonigal, who was our coach at the time, like he'd actually put us with a yellow card all the time. Yeah. So you'd have to adjust then, even like on pitch leadership just changing then your formation or what was the plan if you who you lost, whether it was in the back line, the forward line. So you'd switch your team around. So you would prepare, and like these are international teams who are like full-time professionals, do you know? So I do see the point to make it an even playing field, but I think then we lose the reason why behind the red cards.
There's so many arguments to it, and I was just of the opinion that just punish the individual that's after doing the incident and then bring the game back to a normal level after 20-30 minutes. But as you're saying, the red card is there for a reason, and these incidents shouldn't be happening. So maybe people need to learn quicker, so we're not ruining championships.
So it's going to be accidents as well. That's the thing. Like, so, do you know,
like
so
the Pont was obviously an accident with Colby.
It's a tough one, but I still think maybe come here, they might bring it in. But I'm of the opinion personally, and I think it is going to be very much that kind of like you people will be on either one side of the fence or the other, like, and it's a very contentious topic.
They trialled it in Rugby Championship, right?
They did. They tried Rugby Championship, the most recent one, like, and there was a massive backlash over here from it, like, and a lot of backlash from the likes of guys like Nigel Owens and from World Rugby and stuff going, what are you doing? Like, you know, red card's a red card, but I don't know. They were the opinion of you, like, as in to punish the player. Like, so, but there's arguments on both sides, but that's the beauty of debate.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, sure. We'll see. We can talk about it all day, but I want to go on to another massive game on the weekend. Was the Women's World Cup final down in New Zealand. The Black Ferns got the win. Lindsay, fill us in. It was an incredible game, wasn't it?
Absolutely had everything. England were like 14-0 up after like probably 14 minutes. I thought to myself, God, this is going to be an absolute whitewash here. They're just going to walk it over the line. Then all of a sudden, we had another red card incident. Lydia Thompson, who had all the time in the world really to actually smash Portia Woodman over the sideline, decided she did a moment of madness and poor tackle tech, and it was head on head, and actually both players went off, which is funny because pre-game there was they wanted to reignite this battle that the two wingers had in 2017 in the World Cup final then, when New Zealand triumphed England again in Ravenhill and when we hosted here. So then kick in like Teresa Fitzpatrick had a kick through. Stacey Flula was unbelievable. She had this dummy switch pass. She absolutely, Emily Scarrett just sat down, bamboozled, and then she just went up the wing. And her work rate, just to get past inside, back on the ball and score the try, I thought she was unbelievable. I don't actually know who got player of the match, but she deserved it. I think. Then. What was her name? Crystal, their loose head prop, come on. They didn't compete for a line out for the whole game. England were mauling over like they were small children. And then in the 79th minute, they decided to go up and challenge. I thought England have this one. It was like they were 3 points down. They decided not to go against the kick. They go for the maul, and they were just on the 5 metre, and New Zealand turned it over. Like it had
incredible fairy tale stuff.
Fairy tale stuff, yeah. And then New Zealand had a yellow card as well. It was just unbelievable. It just had everything. And I think, again, extra seats in Eden Park, 41,500 there to see the biggest game. And considering New Zealand were through their own issues in the last 6 months, Wayne Smith came in, he's again stepped back. But what they did in a turnaround in a 6-month period, when they lost most games on their tour when they come up to the Northern Hemisphere in 2021, was, I don't know, it's just testament to them and their belief. And it was lovely to see just rugby stripped back for the essence of how it's held in New Zealand. Like, they just obviously play from a young age, and they play what they see, and they'll try anything.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And to give some context, as you said, fairy tale there, Jason, England would have gone 30 straight test wins, something like 3 seasons without losing a game, and then they lose at the final hurdle in the Women's World Cup. My heart breaks for the England Red Roses, but then I'm delighted for the Black Ferns because they won at home, and it's great for them fighting back. And Wayne Smith said he's going to retire now, that he came back, did his job again.
What a coach!
What a coach!
Look back at him, he's probably one of the best to have ever done it. Because you ask anyone that's coached alongside him and knows him, and it's like, this guy is just as good as you'll get when it comes to rugby coach. But just on the game itself, I'd just like to say, like, it's a fantastic advert for women's rugby, and I think there is a lot of people still on the fence that wouldn't give women's rugby a chance, even though they will watch the men's rugby. And if there's one game you want to sit down, go back, even watch the highlights, see the standard of rugby that is played in that final, and the entertainment factor and the skill on display. It was an incredible game of rugby, and I think probably the reason they don't give it a chance sometimes is because there is a bit of a huge gap between like 5 teams in the rest of the world. But go back to the mid-90s when like men's rugby started to become professional. That was the same case. Yeah. There was only 3 or 4 teams. It's only now we're starting to see the Italys and the Fijis and the Japans starting to come out and compete with everyone. Like, go back years ago, Ireland couldn't compete at professional level with men's rugby. Scotland, no one. It was just the 3 or 4 teams at the top, which is what you have at the moment. But women's rugby is in its infancy when it comes to professional game as well. And
actually, you mentioned breakout players here. I think Maya Roos is definitely one of the players. She's actually the lock. I think she's 20. She's either 19 or 21. She's like, if you actually looked at the caps that England had compared to the caps that New Zealand had, I mean, she's been an absolutely breakout player. She's had very little international rugby over the last couple of years. They've only really played their provincial Farah Palmer Cup competition over the last 2 years. They've had very little test games, and she was unbelievable as well. She's just such a find. And then the Bremner sisters as well, Ashley and Chelsea, like, they were unbelievable as well. So these are all just players unearthed by the Black Ferns in the last kind of 12 to 18 months max. A lot of their sevens players, Sarah Harini, you would know her from the World Series. She, again, just her accolades at sevens, Olympic medals, Commonwealth Games, like same with Portia Woodman, inducted into the World Rugby Hall of Fame. They're just unbelievable, but hadn't really done it. Ruby Tui transferred over. I think she's another breakout nominee.
She is, yeah.
She was unbelievable as well. So just hats off. And again, I think, look, I do want to take the moment to just congratulate England. I am heartbroken from them ways. So I think they've been the standard bearers. They've, 30 straight test matches. They've, broken every record there is, with attendances and everything else like that. But look, you hate to see them lose. They've been the standard bearers, and I think they need to continue that. And it's just luck of the draw on the day, but they've been exceptional for women's rugby and the game itself. So yeah, well, that's the beauty of sport, and it was an incredible game and a good testament to women's world rugby. Unbelievable stuff. And a shout out to Ruby Tui, who actually gave her medal to a little fan in the crowd, similar to Sonny Bill Williams doing it for the World Cup a few years ago. So love that stuff, girls. Well done, and congrats to the Black Ferns. But just want to give a little shout out now to the Rugby Joe UK team who got up and running for their podcast. So shout out to you, Alex and Rachel. And here's them talking about Andy Farrell's side and giving it a big shout out to how good the Irish team are at the moment.
They know too well that 2018 they beat everyone and won everything, and then 2019 they weren't at their best at the World Cup. So they're very experienced people, two of the most experienced player and a very experienced coach. They know about winning, and they won't get ahead of themselves. They'll just be going, we've got to improve on that for next week, got to improve. But big statement, beating South Africa in tough conditions is impressive at any stage. I know they're at home, but I think both teams will take a lot from that. They're in the same group, I believe, or early stages of the World Cup, and they'll have to play each other again, and South Africa will go, well, there were glimpses, we've got a chance. If we make our kicks, then we're winning that game. And Ireland will go, okay, well, we could attack a bit better here and open up a bit more to give us better opportunities. So a great game of rugby. Ireland, fair play, coming through and winning that. There were some massive moments in that second half that they hung on to and came through with the result.
To round up the Autumn Nations series, the other games over the weekend, England got a win. They got over their defeat to Argentina and they beat Japan 52-13 at Twickenham. We had Marcus Smith with 2 tries and Guy Porter with 2 tries as well. Japan weren't up to much, but good to see England in winning ways. We had Wales playing against Argentina. They got to win 20 points to 13, which was a decent game over in the Principality Stadium. Toby Faletau had an unbelievable game again. That guy just never seems to stop playing well. We had Scotland over in Murrayfield, BT Murrayfield, playing against All Blacks, and they nearly had them. They ended up losing 20... What was the score in the final score?
Oh, sorry, it was 31-20. 31-23.
31-23. Scotland nearly had the best team in the world beaten. They were 14-0 up. You had the stats there, Jason.
They were 14-0 up. They got a penalty try for the second one and had got their noses in front, and then they scored. It was 21 unanswered points. And they looked like they were in control with kind of 10 minutes left. And just 2 New Zealand tries. I think Scotland will be kicking themselves. That was a massive opportunity lost. That was again it reminds me of the times when Ireland got so close to New Zealand and just kind of like New Zealand that last 10 minutes. But yeah, that's again, they probably could have and should have won.
Yeah, you feel for Scotland. It's 117 years now they're waiting to beat the All Blacks. That was probably their best opportunity to do it, and they didn't do it. But that's why they're the All Blacks and one of the best teams in the world.
It took us 113 years to beat them, so. Do you know what I mean? And now we've beaten them. I don't know. We're sick of beating them at this stage, are we?
Oh, you heard it here first.
Oh my god! And the All Blacks 15 were in action the weekend as well against the Babas, and Ron O'Gara were coaching them, and they won 35-31. Teddy Thomas with an unbelievable try. So shout out to the Babas. Always flying the flag for some great rugby, and well done, Raj. But we're moving on now to our never stop competing moment of the week, and we're giving it to the entire Munster A team who played in a packed out Parc y Cuivre, and they beat the South Africa A team. Unbelievable stuff, Jason, wasn't it?
Incredible. Thursday night, 40,000 people packed out for a rugby game in Parc y Cuivre. A lot of young guys playing, weren't given much of a chance, and just came out from the first whistle, and we're just. I said it. I put a tweet up at half time, and I was just kind of saying that it's moments like this. And this is when we were 2 tries ahead, and I was like win or lose in the second half. It's moments like this that kind of make you stop and realise why Munster are probably one of the most special clubs or provinces, as people keep saying. We're a club and a province, the same bloody thing, all right? But yeah, it's why they're probably one of the most special clubs, provinces in the world, because I was getting goosebumps watching that game, just sitting at home, and it was just, I wasn't even at the game because I was working late, and even just watching it on TV, I'm kind of like, every time you saw me giving out about them a couple of weeks ago, and then how don't expect much of them this year, but every now and then they do something like that, and you're like, oh, I still love you.
Yeah, do you know what I loved about it was the doggedness and the attitude from the young guys. There was a lot of young guys playing in that team, mostly Cork guys as well. I'd say Roundtree was kind of like, go on, you're playing in Parc y Cuivre. Yeah. Picked all the Cork guys, and even sort of like Ruan Quinn warmed up with the team, and he's just turned, I think, 19. He's one of the youngest people in the Munster squad. He's got 2 caps. For him to be in and around that, and to have these young fellas now playing well across the board. Shane Daly scored a try. We had Gavin Coombs had an unbelievable game again.
Dogbo was class again as well.
Dogbo was incredible. Hodnett, all the guys.
Hodnett was brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, so it's really good for these guys to come together as a team and without the big names and to beat South Africa. I know it's South Africa A team now, but it's still a really good international team. And I was delighted from him, Paddy Patterson. Great.
Paddy Patterson, but first, before you get on to his interview, how good was he in the game itself? There's a guy, I said it after the game, the Leinster game. Was it not the Leinster game? The most recent game. Sorry, I'm confusing my games now. But I remember just saying he was really, really good. Really, really good. And he kind of seems like he's very lively, and he seems to have a lot of time on the ball. When you're watching him, but get on to his interview.
I know, with Paddy Patterson, unbelievable game, got man of the match, and I'm presuming you saw his post-match interview.
It's lovely to see the passion of someone who just he absolutely, it just oozed off him, just the buzz and what it meant for them to win. And you know what, lads, I have waited for so many episodes just to see the beautiful smile and gush on your 2 faces. So I'm delighted we picked this moment, because I have been waiting for you genuinely.
Yeah, I'm delighted for Paddy Patterson. Obviously isn't media polished just yet, but I love the rawness of it.
Absolutely. We don't get to see the personality. That's what we got to see. Everyone's media trained, and I think that was the buzz about Twitter that day. It was finally, don't give Paddy any media train and just leave him do what he does. And like, you know, I think it was lovely. It was just very endearing, and it was, you know, you could connect to him, and he was so buzzing. He couldn't even concentrate on the question. He was just yeah.
That's what it's all about. Like, I mean, that's what brings you back. Like, he's a guy that he was brought in as a short-term option from Leinster. Didn't get a chance. Obviously, he wasn't going to get a contract off Leinster. Impressed in those few months, and then got offered a 2-year deal. So he's just living life, kind of going, I thought my chance to play rugby was finished, and now all of a sudden you're a man of the match in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in front of 40,000 people on a Thursday night, playing for Munster, beating South Africa. I mean, his life has literally flipped in 12 months, so no wonder he's cursing and blinding and smiling, because he's living his dream.
He's dead right, and I love it. We need a bit more personality out of these rugby players.
We
in
need
our
a few
media
more
interviews.
Paddy Pattersons.
Yeah, I love it. Well done, Paddy. Shout out to you. Another guy that I thought did very well was Frisch in the centre.
That offload for the first try out the back. I mean, he's a guy, I didn't see much of it, but I heard he impressed on the Emerging Ireland tour, like in training and in the games and stuff. And I didn't realise. I remember like when he first saw he was signed for Bristol, I was like, oh, he's a big centre. He's a big boy. He is a big boy, and we are lacking in the centre this year. There's a lot of changes around at the moment. Like, so I think he's someone like, I mean, I think Greg's prediction, lads, could come true. Yes, you just don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. My prediction of we're going to do very well in the European Cup. But Frisch, I think I was a bit sceptical of him coming in. I was like, why do you need another fella coming in the centre? We've guys like Dan Goggin, Roy Scannell, Shane Daly can play in the centre.
At least he's Irish qualified.
But he's Irish qualified, and it was the subtleties of his hands, like obviously the offload you talked about there, Lindsay, but he was really facilitating guys and putting them in the space. He's really good playmaker, control the defensive line, and I'm like, okay, he could be in there ahead of Fekitoa. I thought Fekitoa hasn't shown up yet.
No.
Well, I think leave him on the bench. Well, the only thing is the money you've spent, but I mean, you should be playing guys that not based on their name and their, you know, what they've done previously. I think like he really put up his hand, and he came from the IQ program, didn't he? That's how he's at.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he was a Bristol. But like, it'd be nice to see himself and Fekitoa together, see how they work together. Try up, mix it all up, see what your best centre combination is. But
when Farrell comes back,
well, we don't know whether Farrell's going to be back or not this season, or not, like with he's dealing with his issues. But like you have like Roy Scanlon had a good game as well. Dan Goggin is impressed when he came in, but
Diarmuid Barron got a try. Like we named him, he was another guy in the emerging tour. So, and another guy we alluded to about the young guys in Munster. And I think again it was testament to what we've been kind of gone on. Like it's time to just, you know, give them consistency, give them game time. Dogbo needs to be in there just to, you know, put himself about. Like he's a big
How
guy.
is a Dogbo only 19 years old? The man, he's
like a man mountain. Yeah,
not even that, but like it's just the way he plays. Like he plays with like absolutely no fear whatsoever. No. It's like this guy has got 50 games under his belt, and he's like, look, come here. He's got a bright future.
Yeah, he does.
Bright
and I'd love to see it.
Yeah,
onwards and upwards now.
It's exactly onwards and upwards. It's a young fella's team now, Munster, and they're all playing well. And another guy that stepped up and is back playing well is Ben Healy.
Yeah, he had a great game.
Great game. Yeah. Across the board, defensively, kicking in that wind in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on a Thursday night, like, and he was slotting kicks. Very impressed and delighted to see him back. But one other thing I kind of was thinking back, I was like, when Munster played Leinster a few weeks ago, there was loads of spare seats. There was no one really turning up to the game. We were like shouting, come on lads, come support Munster. We need to help these guys get back on their feet. And we'd have packed out Páirc Uí Chaoimh on a Thursday night. Yeah. So the support is there. Like, so we need to keep that up, keep that momentum. Yeah. I know we're getting very excited now, Jason. It was an exhibition game.
Here, look, I mean, we've beaten South Africa, we've beaten Australia, we've beaten New Zealand, we've beaten the Maoris. I mean, who else has done that? Like, can we just take it?
Yeah, but
we're
not talking about the 80s now here, likewise. We're
I know, the Maori game was only a few years back. The Australia game was, I remember being at that game, one of the worst games to ever be at weather-wise. We won, we might have to check this up afterwards. We won 9-8 or something, or 12-9. Paul Warwick got all the kicks. The rain and the wind and the cold, and it was a Thursday or Wednesday night again. I'll never forget it. Like, but to beat Australia in Thomond Park, and like, those are the nights you want to be part of, and those are the nights that make Munster a special province, and hopefully they can kick on from this.
Yeah, there are hopefully many more nights to come for you.
Exactly. We can't just be turning up on the big nights, though. It's the thing. That's why Leinster are who they are, because they come up, they beat Dragons away in a November night. Like, do you know what I mean?
Consistency.
Consistency is what we need. We need this atmosphere. We need this energy on normal weekends, and Munster start getting some points.
And I need you boys with this energy every time we do this show. So come on, Munster, there's more to this.
Yeah, but our never stop competing moment goes to the full Munster A team together with Bank of Ireland. Well done, guys. Keep it up. Very, very proud of you. But that's all we have time for this week, guys. Lindsay, thank you so much. Jason, thank you so much as well. And obviously a big thank you to Bank of Ireland, our partners and proud supporters of the 4 Irish provinces. We'll catch you next week, guys.
Joe presents House of Rugby. United Rugby Championship, together with Bank of Ireland, proud supporter of the 4 Irish provinces.